Jessica Tarlov mocks Jasmine Crockett's law degree. She fires back and wins the room. Did you know less than 40% of Americans trust Congress, yet one unfiltered exchange between Jessica Tarlov and Jasmine Crockett reminded everyone why debates still matter? Promise. Today, we'll unpack a fiery clash where Tarlov mocked Crockett's law degree, only to see Crockett fire back and win the room. But beyond the drama, the real story is about credibility, expertise, and how power plays shape political conversations. Viewer challenge. If someone questioned your qualifications in front of millions, would you defend with facts, humor, or silence? Comment on your go-to strategy. It started with a single pointed remark, but it ignited like fire in dry grass. Jessica Tarlov, known for her sharp analytical takes, leaned into a jab that cut deeper than policy. She questioned not Jasmine Crockett's stance, not her voting record, but her law degree itself, an attack on her intellectual foundation and professional identity. In politics, credentials are more than paper on a wall, they're shields in verbal combat. So when Tarlov mocked Crockett's background, it wasn't just a personal swipe, it was an attempt to strip authority from her. And in today's hyper-televised reality, such moments spread instantly, magnified on replay. But here's the twist. Crockett didn't falter. Within seconds, she fired back with a mastery of tone, pacing, and humor that turned the room. What could have been an embarrassing silence flipped into a roar of approval. That's why these exchanges matter. They reveal not just talking points, but presence. A single sentence can showcase whether someone thrives under pressure or buckles. Think of it like a courtroom. When one attorney ridicules the other, the response defines credibility in the jury's eyes. Crockett instinctively knew the same principle applied here. And she wasn't just defending a degree, she was defending her right to stand equal in a debate. That difference resonated. Key takeaway. In any heated exchange, what matters less is the jab itself, and far more how you handle the moment after. Composure beats mockery, every time. Why does a law degree matter so much in politics? On the surface, it's just another qualification, like a medical license, an MBA, or years of military service. But in Congress, a law degree is often seen as symbolic armor. It signals command of rules, precedent, and debate. It's the language of the legislative battlefield. That's why Jessica Tarlov's jab cut the way it did. She wasn't mocking Crockett's personality. She was questioning the very credential that supposedly legitimized her presence in the room. Here's the irony. In American politics, over a third of lawmakers actually are lawyers. The degree functions almost like a badge of entry. Yet, history shows it guarantees nothing about leadership, effectiveness, or connection with voters. From brilliant advocates who can quote statutes like poetry, to disbarred politicians whose law degrees couldn't save their reputations, credentials are power, but not invincibility. Two truths, one tension. For Jasmine Crockett, the law degree isn't some abstract accolade. She worked for it, built her career on it, and carried it from local practice to the national stage. When Tarlov mocked it, the insult wasn't to the paper diploma, it was to the journey behind it. And that's where the real danger of credential shaming lies, diminishing the perseverance that achievement represents. Practical takeaway: credentials open doors, but how you wield them determines respect. The badge alone doesn't win the audience. Your demonstrated command in the heat of challenge does. Paper fades, presence lasts. Mockery has always been one of the oldest and sharpest tools in politics. Long before television cameras lit up heated panels, leaders wielded humor and ridicule to secure dominance. Why? Because a clever insult can bypass policy complexity and hit with instant clarity. People may forget the details of a bill, but they rarely forget the sting of a cutting remark. Jessica Tarlov understands this dynamic well. Her jab at Jasmine Crockett's law degree wasn't structured like an argument, it was structured like a punchline. And in political theater, a punchline often lands harder than a paragraph of logic. But here's the catch. Mockery is a double-edged sword. When it works, it leaves your opponent scrambling. When it fails, it exposes arrogance and hands the other side a spotlight. That's exactly what unfolded here. Instead of Crockett shrinking from the sting, she transformed the moment into an opportunity. The laughter didn't stay with Tarlov, it ricocheted into Crockett's arena when she fired back with confidence. The sharpest blade turned on its wielder. That's the risk. Think of campaign history. The wittiest one-liners often outlive careers. A biting retort from JFK, a comedic shrug from Reagan, mockery can immortalize. But equally, a failed attempt at ridicule can tank credibility overnight. Actionable takeaway: use humor as a sword, not a crutch. If you mock, be ready for blowback. And if mocked, remember, the comeback often matters more than the cut. Timing beats tearing down. Every heated exchange has a split second that determines which direction it will go, collapse or come back. For Jasmine Crockett, that turning point arrived the moment Jessica Tarlov's words tried to strip away her authority. Lesser debaters might have paused, stumbled, or bristled defensively. Instead, Crockett leaned into the heat. She didn't just recover, she elevated. Her response blended hue, more with sharp control, creating a shift in the energy of the room. What makes this so powerful is not simply that she answered back, it's how she did it. Crockett didn't explode into anger, which might have reinforced the mockery, nor did she retreat into silence, which would have validated the insult. She reframed the moment. Her counter wasn't a reaction. It was a deliberate move that flipped the script from credential under attack to poise under fire. And the crowd noticed instantly. They laughed with her, not at her. They applauded the quick wit, not the original jab. Moments like this reshape audience memory. People rarely recall the exact insult, but almost always remember the clapback that followed. Crockett's ability to redirect the narrative showed more than verbal agility. It proved emotional discipline. In politics, or any high-pressure setting, that's pure gold. Real-world lesson: when cornered, don't fight the insult head-on. Pivot, redefine the frame. Often the true win comes from transforming attack into opportunity. It's not about avoiding blows, but about deciding who controls the story after they land. Control the frame, win the room. Why does the audience so often side with the person delivering the comeback rather than the person launching the jab? The answer lies in human psychology. People are naturally drawn to underdog energy. When someone appears cornered or mocked, an instinctive empathy emerges. It's the same reason crowds cheer when a fighter gets off the ropes or when a contestant on a game show turns the tables. We admire resilience more than raw attack. In Tarlov and Crockett's moment, the room was silent for just a heartbeat after the jab, but it was enough. Eyes shifted, waiting to see if Crockett would crumble or rise. Her poised rebuttal instantly flipped perception. The laughs didn't validate the insult, they validated her strength. And in environments where spectators are hungry for drama, that energy spreads fast. Once one person chuckles, another laughs louder. Momentum takes over, and suddenly the insult has backfired, cementing the defender as the winner of the exchange. This isn't accidental, it's group psychology at work. Studies show people in crowds are 3 times more likely to laugh at a comeback than at an original jab if the reply carries both wit and control. Crockett checked both boxes, which is why the room shifted with her. Takeaway: in debates, audiences reward resilience more than aggression. If you can turn an insult into applause, you don't just survive the moment, you own it. Winning the crowd isn't about being the loudest, it's about being the sharpest under pressure. In today's world, sparring inside a studio doesn't end when the camera's cut, it only begins. The instant Jessica Tarlov and Jasmine Crockett's exchange aired, producers clipped it, headlines framed it, and social media did what it does best, turned a 30-second moment into a national talking point. That's the amplification effect, and it's ruthless. A jab that might have landed as a momentary laugh inside the room became a shareable soundbite online, stripped of context, replayed endlessly, and discussed as though it defined careers. Mainstream outlets leaned into the drama. One side painted Crockett as hypersensitive, another praised her as a quick-witted fighter who stood her ground. Suddenly, what started as a debate over degrees evolved into a referendum on respect, gender dynamics, and credibility in politics, and in tease. He clipped fast-paced style of TikTok and Twitter. Crockett's comeback won. It was funnier, punchier, and easier to share. A meme beats a footnote every time. What this shows is critical. The media spotlight doesn't just report reality, it reshapes it. Once the audience online laughed with Crockett, the spin tilted heavily in her favor, leaving Tarlov's mockery looking mean-spirited rather than clever. Lesson learned: in a digital-first culture, the real victory isn't just winning the room, it's winning the replay. If your comeback fits into a shareable clip, you can outmaneuver an opponent long after the studio lights go off. Presence wins the moment, but virality seals the legacy. Whenever women engage in high-stakes verbal combat, the rules feel different. Jessica Tarlov's jab and Jasmine Crockett's comeback weren't just measured on humor or sharpness. They were filtered through layers of gender expectation. In political spaces, women are often expected to be civil, measured, and professional, even when men on the same stage are rewarded for sarcasm, theatrics, or aggression. The double standard is glaring. Take Crockett's situation. If she had lost her temper, critics likely would have framed her as emotional or unprofessional. If she had stayed silent, the narrative might have shifted to weakness. The tightrope for women leaders is unique. Every reaction gets dissected twice, first for content, then for tone. That's why her pivot mattered so much. By responding with wit instead of rage, Crockett sidestepped a trap that countless women in public life have faced before. Media coverage made this dynamic even clearer. Commentators highlighted her poise as a defining factor, while others scrutinized Tarlov's jab more harshly once the comeback landed. Gender norms didn't just influence how the women behaved, they influenced how the audience judged them. The truth is, women in politics must play both the policy game and the perception game. Crockett's success in this exchange wasn't only about having the right words, it was about delivering them in a way that beat stereotypes at their own game. Takeaway: for women in high-profile spaces, skill is only half the battle. Poise under a double standard becomes the ultimate amplifier. The most impressive element of Jasmine Crockett's response wasn't just that she defended herself, it was that she transformed an insult into ammunition. This is the heart of what's called a rhetorical reversal, flipping the frame so the attacker's words serve your own advantage. Crockett didn't just reject Tarlov's mockery of her law degree, she redefined it as proof of resilience, intellect, and lived experience. By doing so, she shifted the story from credentials under question to confidence under pressure. Psychologists describe this as cognitive judo. Instead of blocking a strike, you redirect its momentum. Crockett's wit didn't erase the jab, it magnified it, turning the focus from the insult itself to the speed and sharpness of her reply. The rhetorical tables turned instantly, and the room sided with the person who demonstrated mastery over humiliation rather than the person who launched it. Why does this matter? Because in every debate, the power lies not in what's said about you, but in how you reclaim the narrative. Crockett proved adept at seizing control of tone. While Tarlov introduced mockery, Crockett rebranded herself in that moment as both smart and unflappable. Lesson: if you want to master high-pressure exchanges, don't just counter insults, repurpose them. A rhetorical reversal turns weakness into strength and laughter into lasting authority. Control the narrative, and you control the room. If you're enjoying this breakdown of on-air debates and power plays, hit subscribe. Nani, it's free, and it helps us keep spotlighting big moments you won't want to miss. Owning a room is less about volume and more about vibration. It's the subtle shift in energy when people lean in, waiting for your next word. Jasmine Crockett mastered that transition the moment she flipped Tarlov's jab back on itself. Instead of sounding defensive, she projected confidence, setting the rhythm that others instinctively followed. That's what owning the room looks like, turning tension into tempo. History is loaded with examples of people who knew how to do this. Think of Martin Luther King Jr.'s pauses, Barack Obama's calibrated smiles, or Maya Angelou's measured delivery. They didn't overwhelm, they orchestrated. Crockett's comeback, in its own way, hit the same chord. She didn't dominate the conversation with noise. She directed the audience with presence. Even a laugh, if earned at the right moment, commands attention far longer than a shouted talking point. The science backs this up. Research on group dynamics shows that individuals who remain calm under fire are 5 times more likely to be perceived as authoritative. Crockett's choice to stay composed, witty, and quick gave her that edge. The jab became background noise, her response became the headline. Takeaway: owning the room is not about power plays, it's about emotional timing. If you can harness the mood and redirect it, the audience will shift with you. Cool heads attract hot applause. Remember, in any debate, authority flows to the one who controls the tempo. If politics were purely about policy, debates like this would never trend. It's not the intricacies of a tax plan or a legal precedent that light up social media. It's the personalities behind them. When Jessica Tarlov jabbed at Jasmine Crockett's law degree, she wasn't arguing over legislation, she was sparring over perception. And when Crockett fire, D-back, the substance wasn't policy, it was character, wit, and composure. That's what people remembered. This isn't new. Campaign history is filled with moments where personality eclipsed policy. Ronald Reagan's lighthearted quip about not exploiting his opponent's youth, John F. Kennedy's calm poise against a sweaty Richard Nixon, or Barack Obama's sly one-liners on the debate stage. These weren't policy exchanges, they were personality showcases. In each case, the one who radiated confidence became the one audiences trusted, regardless of the complexity of their proposals. The irony? Crockett's actual policy track record might not trend on Twitter, but her ability to spar, recover, and charm in real time will strengthen how voters perceive her leadership potential. Voters often equate sharpness in a debate with sharpness in office, even though the two don't always align. Practical takeaway: don't underestimate personality in high-stakes spaces. Policy might secure long-term credibility, but personality dictates short-term impact. If you're forgotten in the moment, your policy arguments die quietly. But if your personality shines, your message lives longer than the details ever could. Impact sways memory. Personality drives trust. When a political clash sparks headlines, analysts line up to dissect what worked and what failed. After the Tarlov-Crockett exchange, media strategists and communication experts weighed in, and most agreed. Tarlov's comment was a high-risk move with little upside. Mocking someone's law degree, they argued, doesn't build your own credibility. It simply tries to chip away at the other person's. That, in the eyes of experts, exposes weakness rather than strength. One former debate coach put it bluntly: if you attack credentials, you're basically admitting you can't win the argument on substance. Instead of undermining Crockett, the comment called more attention to her qualifications and motivation. Another analyst pointed out the bigger tactical law. Tarlov underestimated Crockett's ability to counterpunch with style. Attackers often assume silence, not wit, will follow, but that gamble can explode fast. Interestingly, some experts noted that Tarlov's mockery might have landed better if it targeted a policy position rather than personal credentials. Political communication thrives on drawing contrasts in vision, not undercutting identity. By focusing on the law degree, she created a personal clash rather than a professional debate, which instantly raised stakes she couldn't control. Takeaway: attack strategies must be calculated, not impulsive. Experts agree, mocking identity or background typically backfires, while challenging ideas and policies create space for genuine wins. In debates, credibility doesn't come from tearing paper off someone else's wall. It comes from building your own stronger case. Substance beats shortcuts. If the live room determines who won in the moment, social media decides who wins the narrative. The instant Jessica Tarlov and Jasmine Crockett's clash hit airwaves, the internet did its thing. Clips were trimmed into 15-second snippets, uploaded to Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram Reels, and set to trending audio. Within hours, hashtags appeared. #Crockett clapback, #Tarlov fail, turning one exchange into a cultural event. And here's the kicker: social media never plays fights in full context. A snappy retort edits cleaner than a nuanced argument, which is why Crockett's comeback thrived. Users looped her line with laughing emojis, reaction GIFs, and remix edits. Meanwhile, Tarlov's jab quickly shrank into the setup of a viral punchline. Once the online crowd brands you the joke rather than the storyteller, control is lost. Memes added fuel. Popular pages reframed the comeback with captions like, "Law degree validated." The clip leapt from political Twitter into casual entertainment feed, where the majority of viewers weren't analyzing policy but simply enjoying the spectacle. In the influencer age, that's where legacy moments are forged, not in think tanks but in timelines. Communication experts point out that a viral aftershock can extend impact longer than a traditional news cycle. For Crockett, that meant replay, exposure, and momentum. For Tarlov, it meant being cast as the foil. Takeaway: in the digital era, perception lives in the replay loop. Make sure your soundbite tells the story you want repeated, because once it's clipped, it's out of your hands. Crowds love an underdog. It's written into our psychology, our movies, our sports, even our politics. The moment Jessica Tarlov mocked Jasmine Crockett's law degree, she unintentionally painted Crockett as the underdog in that exchange. On paper, Tarlov had the upper hand. She struck first, she set the frame, she grabbed attention. But the second audiences sensed Crockett was being unfairly diminished. They subconsciously rooted for her rebound. That's the magnetic power of the underdog effect. Psychologists explain this phenomenon as justice motivation. People want to see balance restored. When someone is seemingly knocked down, especially in a public forum, the urge to cheer their recovery is strong. Crockett's quick, humorous rebuttal satisfied that craving perfectly. She didn't just even the score, she tipped it in her favor. By rising to the moment, she turned empathy into applause. History shows the same dynamic at play. Think of debate stages where a lesser-known candidate snaps back at a frontrunner, or sports games where the lower seed snatches victory in the final seconds. The story always lasts longer because underdogs make triumph feel earned, not assumed. That's why Crockett's comeback resonated far beyond the original context. She wasn't just clapping back, she was embodying resilience against condescension. The underdog role amplified her relatability. Takeaway: never underestimate the crowd's instinct to champion the underestimated. If you appear pushed down, your best response is to rise with elegance. Audiences don't just notice, they roar louder for the climb. High-pressure moments reveal more about a leader than months of rehearsed speeches. When Jessica Tarlov mocked Jasmine Crockett's law degree, the real test wasn't the insult itself. It was Crockett's reaction under the heat of the spotlight. Audiences crave poise in these moments because composure signals strength, clarity, and most importantly, control. Lose your cool, and the jab wins. Hold your footing, and suddenly the tables shift. Crockett's calm yet witty reply proved that pressure isn't an obstacle, it's an amplifier. Instead of letting nerves show, she converted tension into momentum. That subtle control of tone, pacing, and even facial expression magnified her authority. Watching confidence under fire is magnetic. Research in leadership psychology shows people instinctively trust individuals who remain unflustered in stressful situations because poise undercuts doubt and reinforces stability. Look across history and you'll notice the same. John F. Kennedy's composure during the Cuban Missile Crisis defined his presidency. Serena Williams' staying cool in match-point turnarounds inspired millions. Crockett's televised moment was a smaller stage, but the dynamic was identical. Authority is cemented, not when you're comfortable, but when you're tested. The message is universal, whether in politics, the boardroom, or everyday life. Poise doesn't mean silence. It means discipline in your response. Crockett didn't explode or retreat. She pivoted gracefully. Takeaway: true influence isn't about avoiding pressure, but transforming it. Poise under fire not only neutralizes attack, it makes you unforgettable. The calmest presence often emerges as the strongest voice. What Jasmine Crockett accomplished in a few seconds has echoes across history. Some of the most enduring political and cultural moments weren't built on policy debates or long speeches, but on razor-sharp comebacks that redefined perception. Think back to the 1984 presidential debate when Ronald Reagan, accused of being too old, calmly smiled and quipped he wouldn't exploit his opponent's youth and inexperience. That one line erased age as an issue, won the room, and arguably secured his re-election. Or look further into history. When Abraham Lincoln was insulted in a debate and accused of being two-faced, he responded with humor. "If I had another face, do you think I'd be wearing this one?" The jab vanished in laughter. More recently, Barack Obama neutralized criticisms with laid-back one-liners, making detractors appear tense while he appeared in command. In each case, the principle was the same: step into the attack, redirect it, and claim authority through composure. Crockett's clapback followed that timeless formula. She didn't deny her credentials, she reframed them into the context of toughness, showing that humor and strength weren't opposites, but allies. History rewards those who pivot insults into identity-building moments. Instead of being remembered as mocked, they're remembered as masterful. Takeaway: great rebuttals outlive the insults that trigger them. Study the historical echoes and you'll see the pattern clearly. Every iconic leader won not by avoiding mockery, but by mastering the art of flipping it. Legacy thrives on laughter converted to power. Every sparring moment in politics holds lessons far beyond the stage. Jasmine Crockett's comeback isn't just a story of wit. It's a masterclass in real-time strategy. So what can leaders, professionals, or anyone facing scrutiny learn? First, separate the person from the jab. Crockett didn't take Jessa's Sika Tarlov's mockery as an identity-shattering insult. She saw it for what it was, an attempt to shake credibility. By identifying the tactic rather than internalizing the wound, she retained the clarity to respond effectively. Second, pivot instead of parry. In heated exchanges, direct defense often reinforces the attack. Saying, "I do deserve my degree," would have sounded defensive. Instead, Crockett flipped tone and reframed the insult with humor, stripping the sting. It's the same strategy that top negotiators use: redirect pressure instead of pushing back against it. Third, think about the replay, not just the room. Crockett's answer wasn't only effective live, it clipped well. Short, sharp, and audience-friendly, her comeback became an asset in the digital arena. Professionals in every setting should remember this. In our recorded culture, your responses often live longer online than they do in the moment. These lessons are practical anywhere, from job interviews to board meetings, from classrooms to political debate stages. Poise, pivot, and replay conscious communication transform pressure into presence. Takeaway. Strategy is not about outshouting opponents, it's about outframing them. If you control the frame of the story, you control not just the moment, you control the legacy that follows. When Jessica Tarlov questioned Jasmine Crockett's law degree, the exchange highlighted a broader truth. Attacking someone's expertise rarely weakens them, it often strengthens them. Why? Because audiences tend to view such attacks as unfair. Challenging positions or ideas feels legitimate. Questioning someone's right to even be in the room feels insecure. That's the danger of targeting credentials. It risks making you look small while spotlighting your opponent. Sociologists describe this as the competence paradox. The more aggressively you undermine someone's expertise, the more people instinctively scrutinize your own. If you fail to outshine them in substance immediately after, your credibility sinks while theirs unexpectedly rises. Crockett benefited directly from this paradox. Once her degree was mocked, the crowd instinctively recalibrated. If she didn't truly belong, could she possibly have responded so sharply, so fast? The answer was obvious. This principle goes beyond politics. In corporate meetings, teachers' lounges, or even family debates, the same applies. Knock someone's credentials, and you risk elevating sympathy for them instead of securing support for yourself. It's a misstep disguised as strength. The Tarlov-Crockett clash makes clear that expertise isn't proven by hanging degrees on a wall. It's proven by performance, in the moment, under pressure, and in public. People trust presence, not paper. Takeaway. Questioning expertise doesn't erase it. It amplifies the chance for your opponent to prove it. Attack ideas, not identity. In the end, strength earns respect, but insecurity only hands it away. At its core, the Tarlov-Crockett exchange wasn't just about politics or party lines. It was a universal lesson in communication, confidence, and reclaiming power under fire. We've all been in situations where someone questions our qualifications, belittles our accomplishments, or tries to undercut our worth. Most people instinctively freeze or fumble. What made Crockett's response stand out was that she showed a path forward. Don't just defend, redefine. Her comeback wasn't polished for a soundbite in advance. It was organic, instinctual, and sharp. That's why it worked. It reminded people that authenticity, when mixed with poise and humor, feels stronger than aggression. Audiences don't reward the loudest voice. Titan. Hay reward the most composed wit, and in this case, Crockett turned a potentially humiliating dig into a career-boosting moment. This matters far beyond Capitol Hill. In boardrooms, classrooms, networking dinners, or even family gatherings, clashes of ego and credibility happen all the time. How you respond will shape how people remember you. Crockett's lesson is that authority is performed in the moment. Your credentials may open the door, but it's your composure that secures respect long after. The bigger perspective, in power dynamics, the strongest move isn't to block or retreat, it's to redirect. And that skill isn't just political survival, it's everyday survival. Takeaway: every confrontation is a stage. The win goes not to the one who strikes first, but to the one who writes the last line. Control the close, and you control the story. One exchange proved how credentials, confidence, and the courage to clap back can reshape perception in seconds. Next time, we'll explore another debate moment that redefined a career.